Mr. Margaret's class gets whenever we do that. That's awesome. You guys rock. My name is Jesse, everybody, and welcome to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. I know we've got a lot of familiar faces today. We've got a lot of new groups joining us for the first time, and so welcome in, whatever the case may be. We are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Now, we've got a good equal mix of Canadian and Americans today, but one of the big things that we are trying to do to kick off 2022 is showcase some amazing Canadian researchers, facilities, conservation programs, and more. We've gone to Ripley's Aquarium, the Toronto Zoo, Sea Smart. It has been an epic journey coast to coast to coast across this fantastic country. And today we get to continue that with Siobhan Darlington. So she is going to feature one of my very favorite creatures in the world that I've never hosted a program on before. I've hosted like 1,000 programs. We've never had this creature featured, which is I'm remiss about that. We have to remedy that today. So we are going to learn today about the Southern BC Cougar Project. She is going to tell us all the amazing work they do to go track, understand more about, help conserve one of the iconic animals of the Canadian wilds, one of our biggest cat here in Canada, a fantastic creature, the mountain lion, the cougar, the Florida panther. It's got 8 trillion names, and we're going to learn half of them today probably. So welcome in to everyone. We've got classes all joining us on YouTube, live from across Canada and the US. It's such a pleasure having you here, and I cannot wait to dive in. So without further ado, I'll stop talking. Siobhan, thank you so much for joining us today, and take us away.
Thank you, Jesse. Can you all see me for a second?
We can see you. You're on camera.
Oh, great. Okay. I just wanted to say hi and thank you so much for having me here today with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. It's a pleasure. So my name is Siobhan Darlington, and I'm a PhD student at the University of British Columbia, Okanagan, based in Kelowna, BC. So today I'll be talking a bit about my research in BC, give you some background on cougars, but before we get into all of that, I'll just tell you a little bit about my journey too. Okay, so you can see my slides here. So I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia. I don't know if there's any Maritimers tuning in today, but when I was a little girl, my first pet was a cat, and I became obsessed with cats. I love cheetahs, lions, any wild cats. I thought they were so cool, but I never dreamed that I would be able to study a big cat one day. So I became really interested in the environment when I was in university and in high school. I studied biology and I worked on all kinds of projects. So I was helping with different communities to tree plant, clean up beaches. We did some kayaking, monitoring different critters like birds, turtles, and snakes, and helping to do research all across the Maritimes. But I decided to make a big leap, and I moved out west in Canada to Alberta and British Columbia, and I started studying large mammals. So I was studying herbivores, woodland caribou, white-tailed deer, and trying to understand how habitat change from people or natural processes affects those animals' populations. So where do caribou go? Where do deer go? How do we track them? Using technology, and I'll show you like this remote camera, if you can see me on the screen, using cameras to detect animals on the landscape and using collar technology too. So the way I got interested in cougars was I was working on a deer project, and we were trapping deer and putting collars on deer to see where they go. And I was checking a camera we put up facing one of our deer traps, and I checked the pictures on the camera, and it was -30 and it was cold. And I opened up the camera, and there were all these pictures of cougar kittens playing on top of the trap, inside the trap. And I thought, wow, cougars are so amazing. Now my dream is to work with cougars, and that's where we are today. So I'm studying cougars in British Columbia in the south. So I'm trying to understand the impact of how people change the landscape through logging or through putting roads in, also through wildfires in British Columbia. How do all these changes to habitat affect cougars and the animals that they eat and rely on? So a bit of background on cougars first for those of you in the US, this will be helpful too. So cougars used to occur all across North America. You can see in yellow on this range. They used to even occur a few hundred years ago in Nova Scotia, where I'm from. So you can see in yellow, they used to occur in all these areas in the eastern side of Canada and the US, but they're really limited today in the red to the western side of the continent. So cougars range from the southern Yukon all the way down to Patagonia in South America. However, they only occur in the west in North America. There's a population of Florida panther that's isolated in Florida out east. But other than that, we have just a few populations in red where cougars are starting to move back towards where they used to occur. And the reason why we have cougars only in the West is because people used to be afraid of cougars and they started getting rid of them over 150 years ago. But cougars are resilient creatures and they're still around today and in good numbers in British Columbia. So some of you may recognize cougars by another name. So as you can imagine, where an animal ranges so far across the continents, they cover many different countries and there are many different languages that have names for cougars. So there are 40 different English names, 25 North American Indigenous names, and 18 South American Indigenous names. So I know them as a cougar in BC, but in the northern United States in the West, they refer to them as mountain lions. In the South, more known as pumas, also known as ghost cat and mountain screamer. If you're French Canadian, you might know them as cougar, or that name originating from the Brazilian name Cougar Attack. But a couple of quick facts about cougars for you. So cougars live to be 8 to 13 years old in the wild, so not too different from your typical house cat, but if they're in captivity in a zoo and they're well cared for, they can live to be up to 20. They have 30 teeth, and I'll show you the specimen I have here. Jesse, if you can throw me on the camera. I have a cougar skull, so if you guys can see this, this is a male cougar that was about 4 or 5 years old. So this is a specimen of it, and you can see the teeth. So the canines are these top ones and bottom, and this is how they kill their prey. So they latch on to deer, and they have to bite through this thick skin of their prey, and they do this all by themselves. So you can see the shape of a jaw for a cat is very strong. It's really wide across, and they have these really big, strong teeth. So they're 25 to 30 centimeters in length. So that's a really big tooth. All right. Hopefully you could see that. Yeah, centimeters. So females weigh 80 to 120 pounds and males 120 to 180. So males, adult males are typically quite a bit bigger than females, but there is some overlap sometimes. If a young male hasn't fully grown, he might look more similar to a female. Females give birth to 1 to 4 kittens in their litters. So on average in North America, it's between 2 and 3 most of the time when they're giving birth. And the kittens stay with their mother for up to 2 years. So the mothers are the ones that do all the work. So they teach their young how to hunt, how to tackle prey and where to bite them, how to cache their prey. That means hiding the prey from other animals and burying them with debris and snow. They teach their kittens how to do all of this. And when the kittens are born, they also have spots. So you can see in these pictures, they're very spotty and camouflage. So it's not too different from deer. When they're born, they also have spots to help them camouflage into the ground. When they're 9 months old, they start to lose their spots. And when they're adults, they don't have any spots at all. And this camouflage is important for kittens because they could get in trouble if another big animal, like a big cougar, that isn't their dad, or a wolf comes around, they could be in trouble. So the
Oh, we've frozen. Sometimes this happens to the virtual broadcast. Siobhan, hopefully you can hear me. We'll see how it goes. I'll try and get you back in a second. I'll put you off camera for just a quick second there. So, this is half the fun with the virtual programs. So far, so awesome though. Well, while we're waiting for Siobhan to get her camera back working again, I will note for everyone, I put this in the YouTube channel already. If you guys want to learn more, bccougarproject.weebly.com, so much on their amazing fieldwork. And Siobhan specifically is at Nature Darling, or Nature_Darling on Twitter if you want to check out some of the amazing pictures she's got from recent fieldwork. It's all there, lots of really, really neat stuff to keep the learning going. She's just dipped out for a second, so the connection's officially failed, but we're going to hopefully get her back momentarily to keep this going, because honestly, I find this fantastic. Mountain Screamer is the greatest name for a cat of all time. I also like the Brazilian one. So as I said, lots and lots of names around the world. I'm going to disappear for just a quick second, send her a quick message, see if we can get her back in as soon as humanly possible. Thanks for your patience, guys, and can't wait to dive back in a minute. All right. Oh, we've got her back. She's
Actually,
back. Why?
we can thank my boyfriend who was watching the YouTube at the same time that I'm talking beside him.
Okay, perfect.
He said, "You're not online anymore."
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll throw him under the bus perfectly. Well, welcome back in. And if you want to bring up your presentation again, we'll dive right back in. While you're doing that, I'll say a quick note. I don't know if you were going to say this in your presentation. I'll give you a few quick seconds. One of my very favorite facts about cougars is that they can't roar. There's only 4 cats in the world that can roar. It's all the big cats, quote unquote, so jaguars, leopards, lions, and tigers. Things like mountain lions and other huge cats, but not in that family, can only purr, which is kind of neat. So there you go. Siobhan, you got it back up. I'm going to bring you back in, and we're all set to go with no more YouTube watching. Okay.
Okay, Jesse, can you tell me where I left off? Because I just kept talking for 2 minutes.
Yeah, and I think you were about halfway through this, and then you froze. So if you want to wrap up the last little bit of this slide and then dive in with the next one, I think that's totally fine.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. It was really difficult for me to tell that anything happened. Okay, so we're back. You're monitoring that? Okay. Okay, so I don't know where I left off, but I just want to repeat maybe a little bit that the females are smaller than males when they're adults, and the females give birth to 1 to 4 kittens. So the kittens have camouflage, and they stay with their mothers for up to 2 years. So the kittens are born with spots just like deer. They blend right into the ground so that they're protected from other predators. So maybe another big tom cougar that might be after the kittens. So the moms do a really good job of taking care of their young. So the young have spots until they're 9 months old, and then they lose their spots, like this young 1-year-old on the left. And the mothers keep them in dens when they're born. So they're under thick vegetation, sometimes rock crevices, just so that they're well hidden from any other animals. Are you still with me, Jesse?
Okay. I am still with you. Still with you.
Okay, great. Okay, so cougars, as you can imagine, are ambush hunters. So if you have a house cat, you may have seen your cat hunting mice around the house or outside and sneaking up on them. So cougars are very similar in a lot of ways to domestic cats. They're ambush hunters and they sneak up on their prey. They have really good night vision. So cougars hunt their prey predominantly at night. So they use the daytime to cover a lot of country, look for areas to hunt, and then they zone in on what they want to eat, and then they sneak up on it. And they usually sneak up within 10 meters of their prey without being detected. But what do cougars eat? So they mainly eat mule deer in Western North America, but there's lots of other animals that they eat too. So cougars mainly eat these herbivores like moose, elk, and deer in the areas that we are in. They also eat other small mammals like snowshoe hare, beaver, raccoons, porcupine. If you live on the coast, BC's coast, or even in Washington and Oregon, they even eat seals in some areas. So they eat these herbivores. They rely on plants. So the plant growth is really important to feed the animals that cougars eat. But cougars also share the landscape with so many other carnivores. So we've got wolves, bears, coyotes, Canada lynx, and bobcat where we are. We also have birds of prey like golden eagle and bald eagle or ravens that will scavenge the food the cougars cache. So there's all these different interactions happening. Cougars are part of this big food web on the landscape. And then people are a part of that too. So when we go out in the backcountry or we're cutting trees down for logging or we're having a campfire or having fun, we might be interacting with these systems too. So for my research, I aim to understand how habitat change from things that people are doing to habitat, like cutting trees down in big swaths of land or putting roads in, or even more natural or climate change driven processes like wildfires in British Columbia. How do all these changes to vegetation or plants that the herbivores are relying on, how does that affect cougars? And if we open up the landscape and there are fewer trees, does that make it harder or easier for cougars to ambush their prey? Okay, so my study is in British Columbia. We have 3 areas where we're studying them. So I'm in Kelowna in this study area here in the Okanagan. We have 2 others too, just east of us in the province. So we currently have 36 adult cougars that we have collared. We're aiming to increase that number up to 40. So my research questions for my project are to understand the habitat that's important for cougars to thrive. So is it important for them to be in areas where there's no wildfire, or does wildfire help cougars in some way find their food? What prey do they eat and where do they eat them? So do cougars eat deer close to fires or closer to roads or further away? What are they eating most often? And then I like this question. What are the uninvited animals? So animals coming to their dinner that they don't want there. So bears or coyotes that can smell from kilometers away sometimes the cougar's meal, and they come in and sometimes actually steal it away from the cougars. So I want to know what animals come into a cougar kill and what time they arrive, if the cougar is getting pushed out of its dinner or not. So you might be wondering, well, how are you even catching a cougar to put a collar on it in the first place? So we use snowmobiles, snowshoes, trucks, and we go in the backcountry and try to look for cougar tracks. So we look for these cat prints in the snow, and if they're fresh enough where we can see the whole, it looks like the cougar was there recently, we can get a professional houndsman or houndswoman who bring their hounds with them, and the hounds can sniff out the cougar track and follow it very quickly. So the hounds can locate the cougar very
Oh, we frozen again. Low bandwidth at the Darlington house. Let's see if we can get Siobhan back in. Hopefully it doesn't kick her out entirely. We're going to see how it goes. Fingers crossed, everybody. We got it back in pretty fast last time, but no other YouTube watching. This is half the fun of all these things. You never know what's going to happen. Again, I hope you're enjoying as much as I am. We hope we can get her back in as soon as humanly possible. But I'll put up again for anyone who's keen, bccougarproject.weebly.com. Some really amazing conservation work being done across Canada to highlight some really incredible wildlife. So I really hope people get the chance to check out that website when they're done. Siobhan's back. We've got her again. Part 3. Good feeling. Hey.
Hi, the internet is terrible today. I'm very sorry.
Okay, you made it work. At least you came back. That's the key.
Yeah, I am. I will not leave you hanging here. Here we go.
All right. It was just a couple seconds at the very end there that cut out.
Okay.
So you're good.
Okay, we're still on the slide. You got me?
Yep, got ya.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so cougars have retractable claws, so you don't see the claw marks in the toes here on this track on the left. The track is about the size of the palm of my hand. So it's pretty big. It's bigger than a coyote track, much bigger than a bobcat track. Okay, so the hounds take us to where the cougar is, then we sedate it. So we just put the cougar to sleep for about an hour or so, and we fit it with a GPS collar. So that helps us track the cougar every 2 hours. And the collars stay on for up to 2 years, and eventually they fall off. So they have a strip on the side that degrades over time, so cougar isn't wearing the collar for life. We also put on an earring, so if the collar comes off eventually, we can still identify that cougar. So we take blood samples, we measure and weigh the cougar and get an indication of how healthy it is. And I'll just show you what the collar looks like. If you can bring me up on the screen, Jesse. You got me?
I've got you.
Okay, so this is a cougar collar, if you can see this. So there's a battery and a computer. It looks more cumbersome than it is, so they're actually not that heavy. They have a little tag, so it has a number on it. And if we place a camera out in the fields and a cougar walks past it, we can read the number on the picture. So that's really helpful. They also have a radio signal. So they send a GPS point every 2 hours, and then they also transmit a radio frequency. So if I wanted to track this collar here, I don't have a cougar in my house, but I'll just put the collar over here for a second. And I'll show you some photos of this too in a second. But I want you to hear what the collar sounds like. So when I'm out in the field and the cougar's walking around, I want to know where it is, I can track it using this antenna and receiver. So it transmits a radio frequency, and each collar has a unique frequency. So if I turn it on to this collar on the table here in front of me, you can hear this beeping. When I aim it towards the collar, it gets really loud. When I aim it far away, it gets quieter. So that helps us direct with the antenna exactly where the cougar is. So that's how we track them in the field. That beeping is music to my ears. Okay. So another thing that we do when we have a cougar in front of us is we age it. So you can see from this picture on the left, we have a cougar who has really nice pearly white teeth. They're in really good condition. There's not much recession of the gum line. So that means that this is a really young cougar. The teeth look really perfect. They don't need to go to the dentist. So we know this is about a 1.5-year-old cougar approximately. And then the one in the middle here, you can see a big difference. So those teeth are really stained and yellow. Overall, the teeth are still in pretty good condition. The canines look a little worn. Over time, when cougars hunt their prey, the teeth become very worn down. So over time, we start to see these poor looking teeth like the one on the right. You can see, and the gums are showing here. There's a rotten canine on this one on the far right. There's teeth missing from the top, and they're just totally worn down on the bottom. So this is an old cougar who is taking down hundreds and hundreds of big animals in its lifetime. Okay, so information we can learn from the collars. We get the GPS points, and those tell us where the cougar is every 2 hours. And over a period of a few months, we can start to see where the territory is of this cougar. So cougars defend their territories, and they typically have what's called a home range. And this means that they kind of hunt in one area, and they don't want other cougars to move in on them and steal their hunting grounds. So this cougar here is C10 on the right. She has a very large annual territory. So across the whole year, she covers a huge amount of ground. But in reality, in the winter, she mainly hangs out in the southern portion of her range where the mule deer go. And in the summertime, she's up in the north. So winter in the bottom and summer in the north. And that's because the deer that she eats are migratory, and they follow that trajectory too. So we can map these territories over time. Females usually have smaller home ranges or territories than males. Usually one male overlaps 3 to 5 females. So this is us tracking cougars in the field. We track them year round. So the fall, summer, spring, winter, you can see on the bottom right here, this is the GPS data for a cougar. And this is every point represents about 2 hours worth of time. You can see when they come back and forth and they hang out at one big group or clump of points, that probably means they're eating something there. So we hike out, we have students that help us do this, and we hike out into the field and we check out what they're eating. So cougars often sleep close to their meal, so we'll look for what's called a bedsite, and that's where they curl up on the ground and fall asleep. In the wintertime, their body heat melts the snow all the way down to the ground, and we can even pick out little cougar hairs from the bed. We can see, too, the tracks going from the bed to the kill, so you can see the tracks again. They measure 8 to 10 centimeters or 3.5 to 4 inches wide. They have 3 lobes on the bottom, and again, no claws. So this is a moose we found on the top right. On the bottom, that's a mule deer that was buried. You can see how the cougar takes debris and covers it up. In this picture on the top right, this big organ you can see is called the rumen, and that's unique to ungulate species where they can digest grasses that they eat. So they have 4 different stomachs, and that's one of them. Cougars don't eat that. So one of the ways we know a kill is a cougar kill and not a wolf or coyote is because the cougars don't like to eat this organ. So it's almost always still there and intact, or they remove it and bury it somewhere else. So this is a camera too on the top left that I put up at a kill to see what animals were going to come in and check out this cougar's meal. So some examples of the animals that come into cougar kills are black bears, gray wolves. We even have birds of prey like eagles. We've had rare species like badgers, so they're a species at risk in British Columbia. We even have other ungulates. So we have mule deer that have come and investigated what was going on at the kill. They have a sense of what predator is around. And also we've even had moose come in and elk as well and check them out. We also get our own cougar. So the collared cougar will come back to its meal once we visited it, and they'll continue feeding. So this is a collared cougar coming back after we put their camera up. But we've also gotten uncollared cougars and families of other females, because they overlap one another, checking out each other's meals. So we've had females come in and hang out, and even entire families of cougars at these kill sites. One more thing that we can learn from the GPS data is not only where they eat things, but also where they give birth to their kittens. So using the GPS data, if the points are all grouped together in one big clump and they're there for weeks at a time, not just 7 to 10 days like a kill, this is a long time to be in one area. And if it's a female cougar and I see that she's going back and forth. So in this example on the bottom left, our female C10, she's got a big group of points for weeks at a time, and she's going back and forth to these small groupings. We checked all those points out, and these two here on the bottom and the top are deer that she ate, and then in the middle were her babies. So she was going back and forth and nursing her kittens, and then taking a bite out of her meal, her deer, and returning back to her kittens. So the females will hide their young in something like this. In this picture here is a slash pile in a cup block. And sometimes it's in the middle of the woods with rock crevices and lots of heavy debris. The kittens are hidden from anybody knowing that they're there. But we can track them and go investigate. And when the kittens are about a month old, we go in and we weigh them and give them an earring. And this allows us to track how the kittens are doing and if they survive to be adults in the future. So in this example here, I have a kitten named Winnie. She has this red ear tag on her left ear, and I put some cameras up throughout the year on the mother's kills, and I got photos of her growing up. So you can see she's about 6 months old in this picture on the bottom right, and this is her in the burlap sack when we were tagging her. So you can still see her little red earring present on the camera. So we know that's the same cougar. Cougars look very similar to one another, especially when they're young. So if she didn't have an earring, it would be hard to know if it was her or her brother Fred. And we can even put cameras up at the den and monitor the kittens. So if you can see this video, that's Winnie and Fred playing and investigating one of their dens. We can also put cameras right in the den and monitor the mom coming back with her kittens. So she's picking up her kittens and moving them around or taking them with her. I'll just play that one more time. And they carry their kittens by the scruff of the neck. Okay, so why are we studying cougars in BC? Why is this really important? We're studying cougar behavior, their diet, their reproduction, or how many young they have, and it helps us identify threats to the population. So the way that we take care of their habitat is really important. The kinds of things that we do to it, like putting roads in or clearing out trees, or even wildfires that might be more intense because of climate change. All of those factors are really important for understanding how a cougar uses its habitat and whether or not they can thrive in the future. So we need to study how cougars are responding to different features on the landscape so that we can better protect the habitat and for them to thrive in the future. Okay, so I just want to thank everybody who's a part of the Southern BC Cougar Project. We've had a whole bunch of funders and volunteers and amazing researchers, biologists and houndsmen and women, students. It's a huge collaboration, so I definitely couldn't do all of this by myself. It's a huge study, so a big thank you to everybody who pitches in on the project, and a huge thank you to you, Jessie, and Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants for having me today. And sorry about the internet connection issue. I hope you're still with me. And I'll leave this up with my contact information. You can visit our website. We have an amazing blog post website where our students write about their experiences in the field. So you can read all about the cool adventures that we have on this project.
Ah, fantastic, and what fun. So I will leave that up for a quarter second, and then Siobhan, after that, you're welcome to exit screen share, come back with us, have a bit of a conversation. All our live classes, thank you guys for sticking around. That was fantastic, and I look forward to your questions. I'm going to take a couple from YouTube before we dive in. So yeah, Siobhan, feel free to exit that, and I'll bring up our first question here from YouTube while our live classes get their thinking caps on. I love this question. Kaylee in Miss Nathan's class wants to know, how do you know when it's safe to approach or touch a cougar? Like what's your cue to know that that's okay?
So when we capture the cougars, we sedate them, and it doesn't take very long at all for them to fall asleep. So it's usually less than 5 to 10 minutes. So we just watch the cougar and we go and check out. Sometimes we poke them a little bit and just make sure that their ears aren't twitching. They look like they're snoring usually. When they're kind of sleeping, they kind of make some grunts and noises, but they're not moving. So they're curled up and we can walk in and do our assessment.
That's what they want you to think. No, we've had this with polar bear research before too, where they tranquilize them from helicopters and do them. And it's a remarkably similar thing. Just like with people, fairly easy to know when someone's asleep. And so you can, do some of that fantastic science while they're out. Great question, guys. All right, let's head to Mr. Marker's class to kick us off. They're joining us in Sudbury today. It's Cyril Varney. Welcome in. Hi.
Hi, how you doing? I've got Deanna here. She's got some questions for you.
Oh, and Mr. Margaret, could you repeat that for us? It's just really quiet coming through your computer.
I want to know if it's scary to put the collar on. And the other question is, what if the cougar wakes up?
Yeah, what if the cougar? Yeah, is it scary? And what if it wakes up?
Okay, so it's not scary for us. We all are trained biologists, so we've done immobilizations or sedations of other animals before too. And there's more than one person. So we never do cougar work by ourselves because of the safety concerns. When there's a group of us, really the cougar just wants to get away. Cougars are actually very afraid of people. So that's sometimes a misconception that people have, or that cougars are out to get us. But really what we experience for wild, healthy cougars, they're terrified of people. So they just want to get away from us. We try to do our work as quickly as possible so that they can get on their way and we can get on our way back to our snowmobiles. But it's not scary for us because they're asleep. So if you just imagine you have your cat on your lap, it's just really big, and we're taking a hair sample and putting the collar on, and we know we have about an hour of time while they're asleep. And we also, if they do start to wake up and we aren't done yet, we can top them up and give them a little bit more sleepy drugs to make them go to sleep a little longer if we had to. We usually don't. So an hour is plenty of time for us to get all of our work done.
Yeah. That was almost certain to be a next question coming up, so that's great. We're going to try and see if we can get Miss Page going in. I know you've had some tech problems, but Miss Page, come on in. And if we can, we'll take your question live. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Yes.
Perfect. We are wondering about teeth. Can you tell us more about, are they really?
Oh, it was perfect, but now it's not. But it's written in the chat, so I'll share it. Tell us more about the canine teeth. You mentioned 30 centimeters long, Siobhan, which is pretty long.
Millimeters.
Millimeters?
You said centimeters.
Oh, sorry. I mean millimeters. That was a mistake.
That's okay. 30 centimeters. Huge, but not this big.
Yeah. But still, if you look at my teeth, my canines, that's a lot bigger than me. Sorry, definitely not half a meter long, but they are really huge. If you've ever seen a saber-toothed tiger,
yes.
what used to occur in North America, those are that's
like a foot. They have like
the saber-toothed
centimeter. Yeah.
But they do have very large teeth, as you can see. Yeah.
Fantastic. By the way, what's going on with the nose in there? It's my favorite thing about the skull is all the little pockets that make it look really fantastic. Is there anything special about the nose, or
that make up the cartilage too in the nose?
Yeah.
So it would probably be similar if we had no flesh here on our noses as well.
There's a terrifying thought to go home with. Perfect. Thanks, Ms. Page. I like the clarification. Miss Hebert's class, your video is still doing weird things, but your audio is great. So come on in Scotch Plains and take us away.
All right. Well, we were wondering what happens to the tags after the cougar dies. Do you guys take the tags off and then reuse them, or are they just done?
That's a good question. So on our research project, we do monitor our cats if they die from different causes. So most cougars die from human causes, where they're is hunting or they get hit by a car. They don't die from too many natural causes. They get some diseases, and males can attack other males. So there is some, and sometimes they get injuries from taking down a moose or an elk and actually get hurt and die that way. So we track the cats, and if we do get a mortality signal, which means our cougar might not be alive anymore, we go and track it down, and we do a whole assessment, sort of like an autopsy, a necropsy for animals, and we determine what the cause of death was, and then we remove the collar. If the collar is still in really good condition, what we do is replace the battery, and then we can put the collar out on a different cougar. If the collar has a lot of wear and tear, it's not working very well anymore, then we retire that collar. So we only put really good working collars out on the cougars when we capture them.
Very, very cool. Great question, guys. All right, I'm going to head to our other live classes in just a minute. I'm going to take a few quick YouTube questions to get as many people involved as possible. I love all your queries, guys. This is great. So Logan in Mr. Anderson's class wants to ask, can mountain lions swim? An easy one.
Yeah, they do. And we actually have monitored one of our cougars that made us huge movement. She went from the ski hill close to our house, about 30 minutes away, down through Washington and into Idaho, and then came back to British Columbia. She did this, what's called a dispersal. So this cougar, when they're young, they move away from their mothers and they travel very far looking for a new place to establish a territory. And this cougar crossed, I think, 9 times across very large rivers. And they usually look for the smallest area to cross where there's no houses. So I watch what they're doing and I can see there's no houses nearby. They go to the narrowest part of the river and they swim across. So that's usually between 300 to 500 meter swim. And they're very good swimmers. They don't tend to swim longer than they have to, I've noticed. So when I see the cougars swimming across the rivers from the data, I can tell when they've come from one side to the other. It's usually where it's narrow. So they won't cross a big lake if they don't have to.
Yeah, but still a 300 to 500 meter swim is very impressive. I mean, I think the longest swim I've ever done in my life was 400 meters. And that wears you out. So good for them. Great question, guys. All right. We're getting a bunch of questions from Miss Quigley's class. We've got a question from Miss Matsuba's class about their smell and their hearing. How good are their senses?
Really good senses. They do rely on their vision a lot at night for hunting. I think their sense of smell is pretty good. It's not as good as the hounds that track them, but they do have really good senses. They're very sneaky too. So they're very good at shifting their weight as well and being quiet to sneak up on their prey. So that's almost like a sixth sense, just being really agile. And yeah, they are very good at being quiet when they're sneaking up.
I've always loved the stories of people encountering cougars, and it's almost always that they did not see the cougar. The cougar was just there, or they saw it at the last minute. It's not something you necessarily want stalking you in the wild, but a fantastic creature. So, guys, time flies and you're having fun. I'm going to head to Miss Dupuis, Mr. Shattuck, and Miss Lindsay's class back to back to back. We'll see if we can take another YouTube question after that, but hopefully, no matter what, your question gets answered. So, Mr. Dupuis, let's head to Hornpain. Come on in, guys. Hey.
Has a cougar ever attacked you?
Yeah. Do you live to tell the tale?
No. So we've never had a cougar attack anybody on our project. We also have safety procedures. So when we go visit a cougar kill and the cougar might be around, we use our telemetry, like I showed you earlier, to see if the cougar is there. We go in loud, so we yell, "Hey, cougar, get out of here." And then we approach and we're loud the whole time, and we go in groups so that there's more than one person and the cougar's long gone. We can hear from our antenna that the sound of the beeping gets quieter and quieter as the cougar runs away. So we know the cougar isn't there. We also make sure there's no bears or anything when we go into the site. So we've never had a cougar attack us, although I do joke sometimes when I was handling a kitten, a 1 month old kitten, they have pretty big claws at that age. And one of my colleagues got a little scratch on her arm. So we joked that she had been attacked by a cougar.
Perfect. It's a great story to tell the water cooler. That answers Kinley's question on YouTube about whether you put the kittens to sleep. So they're awake the entire time when you're.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Awesome, guys. By the way, one of the perks of being a field biologist is that you can go and just yell random things in the woods and it's socially acceptable. So there you go, a lesson for all our students that might want to head into the field. Mr. Shattuck's class, Chalk River, and then we're going to head to Ms. Lindsay's to wrap up. Mr. Shattuck, come on in. Hey.
I've 2 questions.
Go for
Have
it.
have they ever knocked down the cameras, and how do they eat the porcupines?
Ooh.
Really good question. So to answer your first one, our cougars are very curious about the cameras. I have a lot of pictures of the tops of their faces coming up and investigating, and they sniff around, but they usually leave the cameras alone. It's the bears that ruin my cameras. Every time there's a bear, they come and they swat the camera away and knock it on the ground. But the cougars are nice to my cameras, which is good. The second question, I have had a cougar kill a porcupine, and she was a young cougar. I think she didn't know what she was in for. They can be dangerous for cougars and any other predator because the quills, if you've ever had a dog attack a porcupine, the quills can get stuck in you. And it's very difficult for animals to get the quills out because they're barbed. So what happens is we went and investigated and we found porcupine quills, and our cougar had been there for 5 days. So we think she was trying to figure out when she attacked it, well, how do I even eat this thing? So they do eat them, but I think they have to be quite careful. So they take their time and open them up with their claws in their mouth so that they avoid getting quills on their face. So it's a bit of a difficult meal for a cougar.
I like that question. Very specific, guys. Miss Lindsay's class in Charleston, South Carolina, where I think we all wish we were this winter season. Welcome in, Miss Lindsay's group, and come on in, hey, guys. Hi.
When the cougars ambush their prey, if they miss the prey, do they keep going for it?
Cool question.
Yeah, that's a good question. So if they feel like they have the energy, so cougars, they have a lot of energy for short sprints, and deers have a couple different adaptations to jump away from cougars and escape them. So sometimes they miss out and they weren't successful and the animal gets away. But if they have the energy, they can keep trying and go for them. Cougars, they have less lung capacity than a wolf or a hound even. So that's how the hounds catch up to cougars, is they get tired in long distance journeys. So they take their time and they just conserve their energy, and they do short sprints over 10 meters to go get their prey. So they can be really fast in a short distance, but over the long run, they start to slow down. Yeah.
I've always loved talking about hunting strategies because all the dog families, the cape hunting dogs, the wolves, they chase things for really long periods of time, but cats are basically ambush predators. Humans are actually like the most endurance based like hunter in the world. We chase things down longer than anything else. That is the original sort of mankind way of hunting. But I love when we get the chance to highlight some really neat other strategies. Siobhan, I've got time for one more question, and it's like a consistent theme on our YouTube from our YouTube friends. So Miss Rincone's class in Edmonton, Miss Poff's class, they want to know about their teeth. If you brush their teeth, could that keep them around longer? And if they had their teeth for longer, would that allow them to survive for longer periods of time?
Yeah, that's a good question. So cats in captivity, so if they live in a zoo or something like that, where they're fed food and they don't hunt them, their teeth keep in good condition much longer. So that's partly why, too, they live longer. They're not at risk from getting hit by a car or interfering with other animals or getting hunted. If they're in a zoo, they keep their teeth condition better much longer. They don't brush the teeth, but they're not hunting their own food, which means they're not biting into thick ungulate skin and taking down the prey and cracking bones. So when they're in the wild, that's a lot of damage to your teeth. And there's not much we can do about it. If we brush their teeth a couple times and we see them, that wouldn't really help. They'd have to be doing it themselves all the time. But if you're in a zoo, you can see cougars. They can live a lot longer and have nicer teeth for a longer period.
Very hard to brush your teeth without that opposable thumb, but thick ungulate skin is a phrase we've never had in one of our broadcasts, so thank you for that. Siobhan, this has been so much fun. What an awesome journey on such a special creature. I know we've got way more questions than we have time to answer today. I love the enthusiasm, and I do encourage all of you, bccougarproject.weebly.com. Check out some of those social media pages and more that Siobhan shared at the end of her broadcast to learn all sorts of things about cougars. And of course, National Geographic Education, all sorts of other great groups have all that information online if you want to keep the learning going. Siobhan, is there one last message you want to share with all our classes today before we bring them in to say a big thank you and farewell? Anything that they should take home about cougars and the work that you do?
Yeah, for sure. So cougars, they're not as scary as people think. They're really just like big house cats that are really powerful and strong. they're amazing animals. It's really important to protect their habitat and the animals that they eat. So it's always a good thing to care about the environment when you're growing up and think, wow, I really want to protect habitat for these amazing animals to keep them around. That's a really good message to keep forward. And you don't need to be so terrified of cougars. Just be mindful when you're out in the field. You know, follow the safety rules, never go hiking alone, and you should be good to go. But most of us don't see cougars in the wild, so you might have to become a biologist someday to experience that. So
I think that'd be a pretty good win for a lot of our students today. Siobhan, this was so much fun. Thank you so much again. And what we do to end every broadcast, since it's your first time, I'm going to bring in all our teacher friends to say a big thank you and farewell. So Miss Page, Miss Eberts, Mr. Margaret, Miss Dupuy, Mr. Shattuck, and Miss Lindsay, thank you guys all for being here with us today. Have a wonderful day, everyone. We'll see you.